Hello, Exiles. I'm going to get right into it. We have more Legacy of Frisia teasers for you. bIZARrO League, if you will. 2 new Ascendancy classes, one for Templar, one for Shadow. I was not expecting Trial Master to be a Templar choice, but honestly, that works out just fine, especially with what they've given us here. I kind of very happy it's on Templar. We'll get into that in a moment. Shadow got Servants of Arakali. This is very cool because Shadow's never really had what you could call a minion ascendancy, and this definitely qualifies. We'll also get to that in a moment. Otherwise, stuff down here is just what we've already seen. I'm going to try to rapid fire this video real quick so that I can work on getting things a little more concise when I go over this, because that's like 20 minutes to the last one. That's not necessary. Architect of Chaos. Starting with Dissolution, this is the Dissolution of the Flesh unique, except without, well, it's better. The reservation penalty is much shorter. It's only 1 second instead of 2. So that's very doable. It doesn't come with a big maximum life bonus, which is kind of a downer. I can't say whether I like this or not because I haven't done much work with Dissolution of the Flesh myself. My instincts is that this will be very strong because that is a very small window of not taking damage you need to find. And just, I don't know. It seems like a great way to satisfy a character's recovery options. The problem with Dissolution is that there's other stuff here that makes you want to have Energy Shield. So removes all Energy Shield, I think, is actually a rather bad line of text. That you're kind of pigeonholed into not taking other stuff, like Forbidden Secrets. This is probably the all-star of the reveal across both, is this node right here. Specifically, Everlasting Sacrifice, formerly only found on Mahuzadl's Achination, which has a bunch of stuff on it that you kind of have to work around. Essentially, when you reach full Energy Shield, sacrifice all Energy Shield to gain +5 to all maximum resistances. First of all, that says all. It does not say elemental, so that is also chaos. Second, this is not hard to fulfill. This is incredibly easy to fulfill. Just as like a throwaway example, you could get the Betrayal Craft for regenerating 200 ES per second while a rare unique enemy is nearby. That's not going to have perfect uptime like you would hope. You would probably want to get something a little more consistent for recovery, but you do that, and then you get, say, all of your Energy Shield coming from just like a single piece of gear, like a ring, a very small Energy Shield flat roll, and you can basically proc this way more quickly than every 4 seconds to get that 100% uptime, and that is a massive buff for not a lot of investment. This is great. And you get Shepherd of Souls for free, which I guess this could be considered a downer for some people who wanted to go like super in on Val skills and just like have them up going all the time, because this is going to give you kind of a hard cap on how many you can do in the past 8 seconds. Otherwise, this is really nice if you just want to like, I don't know, be able to rattle off what you've got in like a much larger amount and then, you know, have your usual recovery downtime. Yeah. I don't know. It's good enough. With Everlasting Sacrifice is so good that you really have to have something specific in mind for the rest of the tree, which we're going to get into right away. I'm going to save the Val skill gem stuff for later. For right now, I wanted to talk about these two because I like to try to include something that's kind of like, I would say, interesting, maybe overlooked on how good something might be. And these two are definitely a lot stronger than they look. For starters, having things cost life instead of mana is just good. It's much easier to keep your life regenerating consistently in a way that like doesn't hurt you. This kind of goes doubly when you look at the second node, which almost looks untakeable to the untrained eye. But this does do some very, very interesting things. The most interesting of which, in my opinion, is probably how Eternal Blessing interacts with this sort of thing. Eternal Blessing, if you didn't know, basically removes the mana reservation from a skill, well, specifically an aura. Important to note, it can be a life aura. So the fact that all of your auras are going to be reserving life does not affect this at all. It also gives you a very sizable bonus to aura effect. At a 2020 gem is 24% increased aura effect. That's not a small amount. That is like really good. A 2120 would be 25. Your aura, if you have no other aura effect, is 25% better, which could be enormous on something like Determination. The reason why this is interesting is that Eternal Blessing, normally the trade-off is you can't have more auras without some crazy downside. One of the big ones is reserving life does not negatively impact this, which kind of starts to make this all make sense. You can put this on an aura, right? And it'll cost nothing. And then if you so choose, right, you have it set up so that you can reserve something else with life instead of mana. Eternal Blessing will not block it, and it will cost half as much baseline. It's absurdly powerful on the right build. You're going to need to find ways to get probably better mana than normal. I would actually say, like, Dissolution, probably not, even though the way Dissolution works is kind of nice, but maybe the actual Dissolution of the Flesh unique, which, okay, maybe not the Dissolution of the Flesh unique, because this also nukes your energy shield. But it also gives you 20 to 30% more maximum life, which kind of covers what you would lose from the reservation. All I'm saying is, this is very powerful, probably best with a character, though, that is going to go, like, for low life, naturally. A low life build. This is like, all right, go low life, Eternal Blessing is free, go crazy. And it'll work. It'll work. That's the crazy part. And the thing is, none of this blocks, like, none of this, unlike Blood Magic, blocks the existence of your mana. So you could also run Mind Over Matter, kind of for free, and even the Agnostic. Well, not necessarily the Agnostic. That does remove your energy shield as well. But it's also something to consider, that you can kind of turn your mana pool into a completely different resource pool. And I just think these are probably very good for defensive options. Like, there's tons of defensive flexibility in specifically the Architect of Chaos tree. What is that? Sorry about that. Got a trade request. Gave the item away for free. I'm not really playing Settlers anymore, so that's fine. One div item. Not a big deal anyways. So the rest of the tree is where things get a bit more interesting. Let's start with Glimpse Chaos, because Glimpse Chaos kind of has the most, I would call it, late game potential of anything offered currently. 8% increased maximum life is a ton. This kind of comes back around to Hewn Flesh, although you don't have to be doing this. So you could just have a ton of life and energy shield for that matter. This is really good, especially in late game, right? If you can get your gear sorted and all corrupted, which is not terribly difficult if we're being entirely honest, especially in this day and age. You can corrupt items with beast crafting often with zero penalty of, like, or rather zero chance of it going horribly wrong for you. So this is a lot. You're going to want to find a way to fix your resistances. Maybe Purity of Elements fits well here, where you can take that extra resistance to offset this downside, and then you get your element immunity from there as well. So that's kind of my instinct with this. Again, incredible defensive flexibility in the Architect of Chaos, and it's on Templar, where probably the most recent reworks, they just have tons of options for making your character more durable. Outside of that, we get to where the damage comes from in the tree, right? And it's all about Val skill gems, and these are very interesting to me. For starters, 50% reduced soul gain prevention duration is probably a lot better than it looks to some people who don't exactly know how Val skill gems work. Basically, if you increase the duration on a Val gem, like, say, Valspark, that will also increase how long it takes before you can start recharging it. This kind of cheats that, because you can increase the duration, let's say, to 50%, right? You can get 50% increased. Now, Valspark has its normal duration, right, as if it didn't have any reduced, but Valspark, the actual Spark cast will last much longer to compensate. So this is a huge uptime bonus. This is the kind of thing that makes you maybe a little leery about taking Shepherd of Souls, because you could probably just go infinite on a dense enough map if you get the numbers balanced right, and that's pretty fantastic. On the other side, we have Fever for Corruption, which makes your Val skill effect duration longer. These kind of work together almost, although I don't know that you would potentially want to mix both of them. It's hard to say, because if you're, like, you want the last node is the thing, and I don't think you want to spend 6 Ascendancy points and then only have 2 for other stuff on the tree. That might not be that good, although Glimpse of Chaos might be good enough to get away with it. Dissolution could potentially get you there, because the removes all energy shield downside is not as big. That said, Vals require 50% reduced souls per use is really good, but what we're really here for is Chaos Reigns, and Chaos Reigns is kind of a misleading node, in my opinion. The reason for that is Triumvirate Authority exists, and Triumvirate Authority gives +2 to level of socketed Val Gems. The difference between +2 to level of socketed Val Gems and +3 to level of Val Skill Gems is smaller than you would think. The only like denotion from skill being added to the text is that it's not a support, right? It's not just all Val gems, and there are no Val support gems, so technically there is no difference, and that's a big deal. To show you, I have a Triumvirate Authority here. We just went over why this is, you know, essentially the same. The differences in text really doesn't denote any difference in mechanics, because we know what that difference in text normally means elsewhere in the game. Here's a Valspark. Valspark is level 1. Valspark is now level 3. The non-Val portion of Valspark is also level 3. And that's where this gets really good, because this would be level 4 with that thing. And yeah, that's kind of insane. Especially for spells, additional gem levels is like bonkers. Also minions, because there are like skeletons, Dominating Blow, near and dear to my heart. This is an incredibly potent node. This does a lot. And the more gem levels you have, the better it gets up until 30. 30 is kind of like the hard cap, well, the soft cap, I should say. It's more of a hard cap, honestly, because the scaling benefit after 30 is very small and not really worth chasing. But for skills that it can be difficult to scale your levels with, especially like Dominating Blow is a really good example. I'm kind of realizing in this moment I might want to just do Architect of Chaos Dominating Blow for the Legacy event. Definitely one of the characters I'm going to play, because when we get into Servant of Arakaali, honestly, I'm probably going to play Dominating Blow on that as well and find out which one is better. But this is incredible for pretty much any skill in the game as long as it has a Val version. It's also generically good for like aura effects, I guess. This is not so great for things like Val Molten Shell, but Val Molten Shell really isn't going to hurt you in this situation, because first of all, you could just run the regular one. You don't need to have Val Molten Shell. But second, unless you're running, say, Shepherd of Souls, this isn't really going to affect you in any negative way, because it's going to have a different soul gain prevention than your other Val skills, so all the other benefits are going to make it very easy to have uptime on multiple Val skills. So honestly, this kind of does just make even something like Val Molten Shell a lot better. Chaos Reigns is a fantastic notable behind fantastic nodes. I would almost say every single node here can and will find use in someone's build. This whole thing is incredibly powerful. It might be too powerful. This might be like the all-star of all the reveals. Some of this stuff might get nerfed. Honestly, if they came out and said, okay, we're actually changing Chaos Reigns to +2, I wouldn't be too upset. I would say this is still incredibly strong. But I haven't seen the numbers in practice, so maybe I'm wrong about that. Otherwise, I don't know why 286%. I feel like maybe there's like an in-Val joke there that I don't understand, but maybe it's random. Maybe every character has a range and what the increased critical strike chance is going to be. You're going to have to remake your character to get a perfect crit roll. I hope not. That would be so stupid. But yeah, I mean, Depose Order, very good. The reduced soul gain prevention is amazing. I actually think, specifically with Val Domination, you could already have like 100% uptime. This is going to make it way more consistent. I'm actually getting excited about playing this now. Whew, okay. Servant of Arakaali is, it's a tale of two ascendancies. On the one hand, you have the left side of the tree, which I like a lot. Aspect of the Spider is a great skill. 5% increased damage taken per web. It's the level 30 version, so you can have 20% increased damage taken. Great, except not really. Because the whole ascendancy kind of revolves around chaos damage. That guy was happy, giving away all my stuff for free today. So anyway, as I was saying before our trade request came in, Aspect of the Spider kind of has negative synergy with the entire ascendancy. Not necessarily in any like extreme way, but in the sense that what it does baseline really sucks with Wither. Wither kind of goes to like 90%, maybe even higher, increased chaos damage taken. These will be additive, meaning you'll go from 90 to 110% with these two stacking if you get them both to max. You probably won't get them to max, but overall, this has a reservation cost, not like this one here, Malevolent Strand specifically says no reservation. Because it has a reservation cost, that's kind of negative synergy. It's almost like these nodes lean you away from chaos, which you can't really lean away from chaos on this ascendancy. So it's a little bit difficult for me to fully understand. I guess there's like some weird, maybe like ignite chaos build, I guess, that also poisons or something you could do where this kind of double dips really hard. That said, the rest of what's going on is really good because Silk Dancer is an incredible notable. This is like an all-timer across Ascendancies. Everyone wants this. The fact that you can't get it very easily if you're playing the other side of the tree is a huge bummer because of how good it is. Essentially, enemies are going to deal 15% reduced damage, always incredibly well received, and it reduces their resistances by 15%. This kind of makes up for the negative synergy because that includes chaos, and lowering your enemy's chaos resistance is notoriously difficult in Path of Exile. That's a major thing to always keep in mind. Specifically, like I think Despair and some Witch Ascendancy stuff, which won't even be in this event, are the only ways to do it. So this is very good. This is like a major bonus to poison that you don't normally have access to. And that does very much so make up for the negative synergy, but there's a little bit more negative synergy going around, and they come right here in these two. Fatal Bite is another one off of Thread Spinner. It interacts with the Spider's Web mechanics. Malevolent Strands is just its own 2-point node, and Malevolent Strands is very straightforward. It's just Envy. It's not the better version of Envy, but the better version of Envy would be very, very busted early on. This will still be busted early on. If you want to level smooth, go this Ascendancy, take this node first. That is a lot of chaos damage. It's like 120 to attacks and 105 to spells average when you have Envy active, and it has no reservation. That's like, bang, massive. Additionally, kind of Eternal Blessing synergy here as well, because it doesn't have a reservation. Even if it normally reserves mana, you can use it with Eternal Blessing. And yes, I did test that. So that's very cool. The part where the negative synergy comes in is if you are going Thread Spinner and Silk Dancer and Fatal Bite all together, you don't have a great option elsewhere on the tree except for maybe Malevolent Strands, and that's where the negative synergy comes in, because 30% of physical damage is extra chaos damage, means you probably want to stack physical, and if you're stacking physical, Envy is less exciting long term. But maybe that's not as big a deal as I'm like really making it out to be. That could be just fine for all I know. As long as the damage is there, this isn't a big deal. Probably the big concern if you go a big left side Servant of Akali build is getting enough survivability, because you have some hinder from the webs and you have reduced damage, which is very good, but you're going to have to invest a lot on the tree and in equipment to kind of achieve, well, Architect of Chaos levels of survivability, which you have so many options here to boost the hell out of your character. I'm realizing at this point that the video is still kind of going long, but to be fair, there's a lot more to talk about in this one, so I'm not going to apologize. I'm going to blame Grinding Gear Games. It's nice not to have consequences. Finally, power charges. Instant power charge generation for pretty much any build is wonderful. Just an incredible addition. There are so many things that interact with power charges, and just the fact that this is always going to be up there and it's going to be very easy to maintain maximum power charges. You have lots of crit scaling inherently. Rather, you have enough crit scaling inherently. I would even say going a non-poison build with all of this stuff together is probably very, very doable. Especially with the way Envy will interact with attacks. It's probably strongest with attacks, if I'm being perfectly honest. But there's also, like, Blade Vortex would probably slap very hard with this setup. And having, I mean, you have all the traditional tools, right? That's just, there's no other way to put it. That said, let's get into the other side of the tree, because to me, this is the no-brainer, figure it out and go type part of the tree. The big downside of the right side of the tree is you have no defensive options. The upside of the right side of the tree is you are going to hit so hard it might not matter. You can pretty much super invest into defenses, especially because it's minion focused, and there's already kind of a lack of minion investment on the tree. The biggest problem with going on this side of the tree as a shadow is you're pretty far from the best minion nodes. Those are over by the Templar. But that is a fleeting issue because you can go get Malevolent Strands early, use that to level, and then swap over to this later, which is probably what I would do if I were going to play Dominating Blow, which I might do on this character, because wow, this all works very well with it. First thing to keep in mind, Penance Mark. Penance Mark was from the Affliction League. It was a Wildwood skill. Basically, you put it on an enemy, and it will summon ads that will attack you. And the reason why that's kind of desirable is it lets you trigger on-kill effects, which plays right into the rest of this. Before you take Penance Mark, you kind of have to go through Skin Crawlers. Skin Crawlers itself is a very good node. 50% chance to poison enemies on hit for minions is massive, because minions kind of have a hard time scaling their poison on hit effect. This is no small benefit. This is actually a tremendous buff but also like an archetype enabler in a way that maybe wasn't so possible elsewhere in the game. And it's going to be a big generator and a massive reward for players who manage to stack a lot of minions, which is where Broodguard comes in. Arkali's Fang is already a very desirable unique for its Raised Spiders skill. It works the same way as the Ascendancy, except it's level 1 on the dagger and level 20 in the Ascendancy. That's kind of absurd, but I don't know how good it is necessarily, because the dagger version has sockets that will affect the spiders. So I'm guessing these are going to be much stronger baseline, and hopefully you're just going to experience like parity, right? There won't just be one that's outright better than the other. But I don't know for sure. The reason why the spiders are so cool is because they kind of have phasing. They can overlap with other minions, so if you're running a big army of minions, these get right in there and you don't have overlap issues on a single enemy, especially a smaller one, which can be an issue with Dominating Blow, which this is definitely going to synergize with very well. And I say that because Dominating Blow is physical minions that can poison, and will be happy to do so. It looks very punchy for that, and even the final node is rather exciting. Neurotoxin, let me slide this over a bit. Neurotoxin gives you a ton of crit multi for your minions, which is like, all right, we're poisoning, now they're also going to hit like a truck, because that is a lot of critical strike multiplier. Also, minions base attack critical strike chance is equal to the critical strike chance of your main hand weapon. That's not hard to scale in a lot of ways. There's a lot of weapons that you can use for a base type that will get this done. It's also kind of a way to add value to a minion when you're not using a Convoking Wand, which is a big deal again for Dominating Blow. And I'm going to bring that up a lot, but it's one of the skills I probably know the most about, and I'm genuinely a little bit, I would say at least, an expert on. So this is like a massive enabler in that regard. The amount of damage you're going to be able to put out on this build is probably going to be absurd, all right? And it doesn't have to be Dominating Blow. I'm sure Skeletons would work just as well. But you're talking about minions that are going to slap very hard, apply a ton of poison, max withered debuff stacks. I don't even know that you necessarily need Penance Mark, but the fact that you can get it if you need it for a bossing setup is fantastic. Like, this is actually tremendously useful. And on top of all of that, one thing I normally do is I use Holy Relic to spin up at the start of a map if I don't have like a weapon with good damage for my Dominating Blow stuff. That is a physical spell the minion triggers. None of this is attack specific, so even that guy is getting buffed. Like this hits everything, at least in that specific scenario, and it will do so for any other build where you're running minions that are purely physical. So Summon Raging Spirits are a little bit sad, but Phantasms, right? If you're running what is, I don't remember what that staff is called. Soul Rest. If you're running Soul Rest, this is incredible. Again, this is a fantastic kind of just damage engine. The only issue, again, is survivability in this tree. And in this case, you don't even have Silk Dancer, which is a real bummer, because at least 15% reduced damage is 15% reduced damage, but otherwise, very powerful tree. And to be fair, you have incredible baseline defenses in the shadow side of the tree. So as long as you can figure out your skill tree where you run all the way over to get good minion stuff while getting your defenses on the shadow side, this is all going to come together. It's going to make a very strong build. And I'm excited to try both of them for one skill. I'm going to play the same skill twice in bIZARrO League. Anyway, this has already gone way longer than I thought it would. So much for me getting it done quick. I guess this is the sin of being over-prepared, because I had something to talk about for everything on this. And honestly, it's all very exciting because we don't have stuff like this in the game. But yeah, again, I can't stop myself. Have a good one, Exiles, and see you for the next reveals.